All right, what's up everybody? Today I want to talk a little bit about ultrasound, microtubules, and memory, and why all three of them work together in tandem if utilized properly. Now, first thing, let's talk about memory. What is a memory if you look at it from the microtubule model? What a memory represents is a certain spin pattern that's allowed to happen on the track of a microtubule. So there's this concept in electronics called a memristor, which is where you have a piece of memory, a memory chip, and you run a current through it, and depending on what memory you've implanted into the chip, the current will run a certain way and perform a certain calculation. But by modifying the memory circuitry of the chip, of the memory resistor, you're able to modify the path and the calculation that's able to happen. That's very similar to how memory works on a microtubule in modifying consciousness. Memory and consciousness are very much intertwined. With good memory, you can reroute how your consciousness behaves and change the feelings that you get. So there's a big relationship between feelings, emotions, memory, frequency, and microtubules. So if your microtubules, in the case of Alzheimer's or dementia, are falling apart, so some of these components inside of the microtubules may begin to get damaged or fall apart or start splitting, you might have these little benzene rings here falling out. Just to make it simple, right? So you're gonna have these things going boing, boing, like that, okay? Pieces of the physical microtubule can actually start to fail. Now, let's look at what a memory is. A memory, generally speaking, is going to be some pathway that lights up when you want to remember it. So if you go, I want to remember pie, a good pie, a cherry pie, there's going to be a certain pattern that lights up. It'll go here, 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 and it'll sort of run through, right? Run through. You see that pattern in a lot of encoding. And if you have usually what you're gonna have is a couple thousand microtubules, they're all gonna line up and have these kinds of grid, kind of checkerboard patterns almost of how they light up and what frequencies go through them. And your brain's gonna go, that's what a pie tastes like, and that's what it sounds like and feels like and looks like and smells like. And you're gonna have this conformational holding pattern of pie, of a cherry pie. And that's gonna be held firmly in your mind until your consciousness, your mind, your focus shifts onto something else, and then your microtubules are gonna go and rewrap around some other symbolic representation for something like maybe a rowboat, okay? Number 4, rowboat. So something like that will shift. Now, if you have damage to the microtubules, it doesn't matter how many amyloid plaques you have floating around in the brain. What really matters is, are the microtubules coherent? Now, damage over years isn't going to get fixed in a day or 3 days or 5 days. Sometimes these things need to go, hey, we've gotten the signal, maybe there's some other things we need to put into our body or reroute things to make things better. For instance, serotonin, which is produced in your gut, has to move, and tryptophan as well, which is a core part of your microtubules, has to actually ascend from your gut production up into your brain where it probably really matters. And that can sometimes take 2 weeks. So just because you've sent a signal into your mind of, hey, it's time to repair these microtubules, doesn't mean it's an instantaneous thing, right? If you identify damage in a house and I say, I think we should fix that, it's not gonna get fixed immediately, but you can set the intention and put the energy into it to get it fixed, right? Your body works very much the same way. Ultrasound seems to put a frequency in, ultrasound kind of vibrates and resonates and targets into the microtubule, and the way it resonates the microtubules have a built-in error correction process where they can tell if something's wrong, but until they've been used or vibrated, smooth like this, that error correction might not actually take place. So one of the mechanisms by which ultrasound could be working is indicating to your brain and to your body, hey, when we put ultrasound in here, the memories didn't appear, but we know they should be there. Let's get all the resources we need up into the brain to make it heal. But I can guarantee you that the process upon which serotonin and probably some tryptophan, which is a really critical piece of microtubules, can take 2 weeks to go from your gut up into your brain. So, of course, make sure you're eating properly, right? You don't want to neglect your diet during some of these things. So that's kind of the process. Now let's look at what a memory might look like and why these might look a little bit different and why these spin frequencies are really important. So you notice how these microtubules also have the spin process. So you can actually have down through doom, 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 and doom, doom, doom. You can actually have lines going through these and have different resonant patterns. So just to simplify it, we would look at like a curly Q or like a slinky dink kind of picture. Now, if we have memory number one being, let's say it's a necktie, okay? Necktie number 1, 2, Noah's Ark. Let's just say that, just to pick a random word out of a hat, right? Memory number 1, this is the pattern representing a tie. Number 2 represents Noah's Ark, right? For everything that represents, Noah's Ark, right? Everything inherent in that is represented. You can see there's a difference between the two. One's a tighter frequency and one's a longer frequency. Okay, now let's say that in the Alzheimer's dementia model, one of your microtubules has been damaged, right here, where my hand accidentally went. And then you have another piece of damage. So you have a and a okay? Now, if I say, okay, what's memory number 1? You'd probably be like, well, since the frequency can travel through unimpeded, that would probably indicate it's a tie. However, in position number 2, the microtubules that would need to light up during a memory recall of number 2, if there's damage physically to the microtubule, how can this work? This can't work. This doesn't happen. So the deterioration of microtubules is uneven. It's an uneven forest, right? It's a forest of millions of microtubules. Some of them are falling apart completely. Some of them are still standing. The process of Alzheimer's and dementia, when it kills you, is 95% of those microtubules will be gone, and then you're dead, okay? So regrowing some of the forests and some of the trees, the microtubules in that big, dense pyramidal neuron forest can take a little bit of time. So it's essential that you understand that there can be some memories that can work, and some memories will just be complete deficit, or maybe even hallucinations. Because sometimes if you break one of these bonds, which can happen in the microtubule, these things can get sent off in a different kilter. Imagine if you took a mirror and reflected a laser light in the wrong way. You'd get these distortions. You'd have like, oh man, I'm thinking of a tie, but now it's a rowboat? What the hell? Like, I'm thinking about the 4th memory in the list, a rowboat all of a sudden. These kinds of distractions can happen in a microtubule because they are susceptible to physical damage. And one thing we know for sure is that when you resonate at a low intensity, a low harmonic frequency, a boom, to a microtubule, it begins to self-resonate and self-fix itself, essentially. So it does tend to repair itself. So that's the principles upon which applying non-focused, low-intensity pulsed ultrasound with specific frequencies. The frequencies can make it work better, but in lieu of having access to those exact frequencies, we can approximate. And I've shared what some of those frequencies are, but I'm just going to kind of keep some of that information scattered throughout, okay? Some of these videos. So you just have to kind of pay attention, okay? I do want your attention, and I'll reward you for giving me your attention in big ways, but I don't want to just spill the beans in one single video, okay? So that's the concept behind how ultrasound and microtubules can impact and impart better improvements to your memory. is by making your microtubules work better, you do get better memory. And this translates from an Alzheimer's dementia model, also most likely to normal, healthy human beings too. These concepts still laterally apply there too. I mean, it's no understatement to say that in 2013, when I first read that Stuart Hameroff paper, that ultrasound on the right prefrontal cortex can make you feel a little drunk, that I immediately went out and purchased a small, like a $16 fetal Doppler ultrasound, one that costs like, I don't know, a couple bucks, $16, something like that on eBay. And I started putting that on my head and I got 2 of them, and you could put one on here and one here, and you can listen to it going through your whole head at 1 megahertz or 3 megahertz, and you can actually listen to the ultrasound going through your actual head. And it was at that point that my life began to change significantly. I started remembering things a lot better. I started focusing on things a lot better. It was an interesting transformation that I never really gave credit to the ultrasound specifically, but it must have played a role. It's a very powerful moment for me. Just that transformation to start using ultrasound like that on my brain. And I'm sure that many of you watching as well could probably benefit from some of these aspects of ultrasound. And they are coming, for sure. There's better things on the horizon right now. But there's things that you can do in your life currently that I think are even more powerful than ultrasound alone. Working on your memory, for instance, working on your priming, your sleep, your diet. Some of these things, first and foremost, I think are more important, generally speaking, than just thinking that, oh, if I just put ultrasound on my forehead, I'm going to become a mega genius. I'm not saying that, but I am saying there's something to it. And what that is exactly, I think, is going to be found in the microtubules. And I think we have enough experimental human data to validate that that is the case. And so I'm just here, honestly, really early. Let's just say I'm really, really ahead of the game in promoting this and talking about this kind of stuff, because I think it's phenomenal. I think it's important. I think it's valuable. And I think it's going to represent a huge shift in our culture to think more in terms of, how do I enhance my body? Rather than reaching for drugs, is maybe reaching for ultrasound instead. Frequency-based ultrasound, not pills. Ultrasound, not drugs. Ultrasound, not addictive drugs. It's going to be this ultrasound over here, and the frequencies, almost like an app store kind of thing, that you're going to be reaching for, rather than reaching for pills. So, and I know that's going to be the case. I know that for 100% is going to be the case. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. That's this relationship between ultrasound, microtubules, and your memory. Maybe I'll do another video on the memory program and the memory technique that I use here to basically say, why is number 1 a tie and number 2 is Noah's Ark? Maybe I'll share some information on that in the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.